Alright, let's now solve what we call radical equations. Now, radical equations has to do with square roots, so we're going to see a lot of square roots here. So, let's take, for example, 1/10 square root of 110 minus n is equal to n. Now, the first thing you want to do is you want to get rid of the square roots. Now, to get rid of square roots, what you have to do is we have to try to cancel out, square root. So, here's what we do. I say let's rewrite square root of square root of 110 minus n as 110 minus n to the 1/2 power. Now you'll know what I'm trying to do here. Alright? Now if you remember your exponents, alright, what we're going to do is we're going to square both sides. So we're going to square both sides, yes. So what happens is, in exponents, when you square both sides, you're multiplying 2 times 1/2. So 2 times 1/2 is really just equal to 1 because the 2's cancel out. So on the left side, you're just going to get 110 minus n. Easy enough. And n to the squared is n squared. Simple. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to solve, well, this is what we call a quadratic, okay, because it's n squared. So what we want to do is we want to make everything equal to 0. And to do that, we have to bring n squared to the left side. So let's subtract both sides by n squared. So what we get is negative n squared plus 110 minus n. Now let's put everything kind of in order. So we'll put n squared, then n, then 110. So it's going to be negative n squared minus n plus 110 is equal to 0. Now to solve this equation, you're going to have two answers. Alright? But we have to check if both answers are correct, because sometimes you might have extra answers. So what we can do is we can factor out a negative, because negative is not really great. So we get n squared plus n minus 110. Because if you factor out a negative, alright, from this whole equation, alright, all the signs start changing. So negative turns to positive, positive turns to negative. Okay, so now we can see if we can factor this out. So let's try to turn to a binomial. Alright, so both sides will have, or both binomials will have n. Okay, now we gotta choose factors for 110 so that when you combine them together, it should equal 1n. Okay, so let's see if we can do that. Well, let's see, we have 110, so let's see what factors might work here. First thing I think of is we could probably divide by 5, so it's 5. 5 goes into 110, 210, so 22. This could be kind of tough. 22 is 11 and 2. Oh, I get it. So what we can do is we can multiply, I guess another way of thinking of 110 is that 110 is also 10 times 11, right? Okay, so we can use these two factors. So we have 11 and 10. Okay. Now, here's where we have to be careful about the signs. Is that when you multiply these two out, they have to equal a negative number. So you're going to have either a positive and negative for each binomial. So this could be either a positive or this could be a negative. or vice versa. Now the way to know which one it is by looking at the middle term. So when you combine both of these numbers, they have to equal, or when you subtract them, they have to equal a positive number. So to do that, we put the positive sign in front of the bigger number, so which is 11, and we put the negative. All right, because when it comes to a binomial, if you multiply it out, you should get this answer. So when you expand it, so n times n is n squared. Then we multiply n times negative 10, which is negative 10n, and 11 times n, which is 11n. So 11n minus 10n should equal n, and plus our positive 11 times negative 10 should equal negative 110. So this is kind of like working backwards. Okay, so now we can solve for each equation. So we have n plus 11 equals 0, and n minus 10 equals 0. Okay, so we get n equals negative 11, right? And then n equals 10. So now what we have to do is we have to plug in each value, all right, into the original equation right here. So remember, it's the square root of 110 minus n is equal to n. Okay. All right. So let's plug in negative 11. So that would equal 110 minus negative 11 equals negative 11. Okay. Now it doesn't work out because the thing is, if you have a square root, right, and you don't have a negative sign outside, you cannot have a negative answer come out. So negative blend does not work. Let's see if 10 works. So 110 minus 10 should equal to 10. Alright, so that's equal, 110 minus 10 is equal to 100. And sure enough, the square root of 100 is equal to 100. So our final answer is 10. Now this takes a lot of steps, but it is what it is. So the first thing first is, if we have a radical function, we have to square both sides to get rid of the radical. And then this turns into a quadratic equation. And to solve a quadratic equation, we have to kind of go back and turn this quadratic into a binomial, right? So two monomials, all right? And to do that is that the first terms for each monomial, you multiply n times n, or if it's x, x times x, all right? Then you take the factors of the 110, and what you do is you take the factors of 110, and then when you either subtract or add them, they have to equal the second term. Okay, so in this case it was 11 and 10. All right, so when you multiply them out, they should equal to this original quadratic. So n times n is n squared, n times negative 10 is negative 10n, 11 times n is 11n. So if you combine 11n minus 10n, you should get n, and 11 times 10, negative 10 is equal to negative 110. And then from there, you just solve for each one. So n plus 11 is equal to 0, n minus 10 is equal to 0, and then n is equal to negative 11, and also n is equal to 10. Then you have to check both numbers. Alright, so you plug in negative 11 to n, but it doesn't work because you can't have a negative number come out from square root.